This is what we do and why we do it, baby. We rollin'!
Covering MMA from all over the world, this is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMA Junkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Combs, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Well, let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to MMA Junkie Radio, the only show that matters. I'm Goz. That's Richard Hunter from the Phone Booth Fighting Podcast. He's going to be filling in today for George because George is at Dana White's Contender Series. We flip-flop every week, and when we do that, Richard Hunter is gracious enough to come in and help.
Yes, happy to be here.
Thank you.
It's my privilege. Glad to be here.
So today's show, we will have Yves Edwards on the program. He's going to come on and dive in and talk a little PFL with us, and we're also going to be continuing what we started yesterday with some of the new blood that we've been introducing over at MMA Junkie. Dave Doyle, our senior editor, will also be joining us. Yesterday we had Simon Simano, and we'll continue with that trend tomorrow as well. So we'll have those two guests, and then we'll talk about any of the news that you guys want to get to. Don't forget, you can always phone in 877-FIGHT-93. That's 877-344-4893. I believe Andre is producing today, correct?
Yes, I am. Hello.
What's up? So at some point, I already gave you guys the memo. Towards the end of the show, I think, is when we'll get to this. We kind of skirted around the fact that Dana White was cool with putting on the fight of Justin Bieber versus Tom Cruise. So if we're going to dive into that world, why not dive into a whole fight card? And this started off as, hey guys, give me your best 5 celebrity fights. We'll put that together. But it was so much fun. I don't know if...
A lot of shows would have stopped there.
Yeah.
Not the only show that matters.
We have 4 ESPN2 fights and 3 ESPN Plus fights.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you guys are as deep as I got into it. I literally had to make phone calls to celebrities and go, look, I can't have you on this one. Maybe the next card. Maybe a fight night.
Basically, stay on weight in case somebody drops out. You probably had to say that a couple times.
Yeah. How about you, Andre? Do you have your card ready to go and everything?
Yeah, I got some. It's gonna be pretty fun.
All right. Okay, so let's dive into the news here. It's kind of a sad topic. This is a combat sports channel. Our show is MMA Junkie, but I grew up on boxing. George grew up on boxing as well. I know Richard has watched his fair amount of fights throughout his life. So really sad news here. Man, it just sucks. Boxer Maxim Dadashev died Tuesday morning, which is this morning, of brain injuries that he got during a fight over the weekend. If you were watching that fight, you kind of saw this play out a little bit, but I don't know that you would know that it would get to this extent. What happened was, sitting on the stool, going into the 11th round, his corner, they wanted to stop the fight. They had the conversation with him to stop the fight. He didn't want to. Most fighters are going to do that. But if you looked at him throughout the fight, he took a lot of shots. But if you looked at him, he wasn't like bloodied up or bruised up. But anybody that's ever been hit before with boxing gloves knows that those shots, when they hit you, it's like so much is covered because the glove is so big that it's just that force. Every time it hits you, you can just feel everything rattle. And he had taken a lot of those. So the corner stops the fight, and this is the part that I think a lot of people who didn't see the fight probably saw, like on SportsCenter. When he was leaving the ring, you could tell he just was having a lot of trouble walking on his own. They had to help him out. He gets behind the curtain, starts vomiting, went to the hospital, and yeah, they had to do kind of like a self-induced coma, and he just wasn't responding from that, and it was just those repetitive blows to the head. Richard, did you see all that went down? And what are your thoughts?
I mean, I basically worked in reverse because, I saw the news that he had died and then went and did the due diligence into what happened in the fight. And I'm very familiar with his trainer, Buddy McGirt, and the accounts of how they had wanted to stop the fight and that sort of thing. And, everything you said about it is exactly right in the sense that I think a lot of times the danger of boxing gets overlooked in this day and age. It didn't used to so much, first of all, because they have made the sport safer. Shorter rounds, or shorter fights, I should say, not shorter rounds, but, 15-round fights anymore, things like that. But in the day and age of MMA, where one shot can look so brutal because somebody can get knocked out cold, the misnomer is, but there's not a cumulative effect of 200, 300 shots. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with boxing gloves. If it's maybe even when we talk about like a bare knuckle fight, bare knuckle is so visual and visually graphic and bloody, and it's like Stitch says it's his new favorite sport because it gives him the most work. But that a lot of that is surface compared to internal damage. And when you're talking about exponentially more power blows, especially to someone's head, that can a lot of times have much more of a cumulative damaging effect. And I think that's sometimes what you get in boxing. But I'm taken right back to, when I was a kid, boxing was the only thing I watched as far as sports. And I watched Ray Mancini inadvertently kill Dooku Kim live on television. I saw it when I was 12 years old. Remember, it was like a Saturday. It was on ABC's Wide World of Sports, And so this is, unfortunately, nothing new. It's something that's happened from time to time in boxing, and it just goes to show you that no matter how safe you think you can make the sport, boy, there are just no guarantees on any given night that something like this doesn't happen.
I remember in college, early in my college career, I had to do an essay. It was a study. It was an oral report on boxing versus MMA, I think, and the safety. So doing the research, going back to like 1918 or something like that, there had been 2 deaths in boxing per year. And I remember that stat. And so that led me down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out, well, how is that possible? Trying to explain to this whole class. Because everybody, people look at MMA as being brutal right now. Can you imagine what they looked at it like back then, right? And so we went through that, how the blows just don't really mount up as much in MMA. Now, the thing that people don't realize, I think, where a lot of the fighters that end up with these sort of effects afterwards, I think most of that comes from training. Yeah,
a lot of that can happen in the gym. And that's another thing that has changed in MMA over time is you don't have a lot of these what were referred to as gym wars now in modern camps the way that you did even just a decade ago.
I feel like the mixed martial artist's shelf life has been cut a little bit as well. If you look at guys like an Aaron Pico, right? Pretty devastating knockouts there. James Vick. These are young guys that really need to take a rest. And so in boxing, I think you can come back, get another fight, pass your physicals, do that over and over. But in mixed martial arts, if you have too many of those, I think the career's just done. And so I think it's a little bit shorter in mixed martial arts and in boxing. Yeah, it's tough because, it's not even like you could say this happened on a small circuit or anything. Like, these are professionals. These are good fighters. It was just accumulation of so many blows, and I believe Buddy McGirt was saying, like, even at the end of round 9, he kind of had a feeling like we're getting close to here, having to stop something. But I'm glad they did when they did. There's been certain fighters that have gone out in the ring, and not to say that it's any better or anything, but it's just it's really tough. He has a child, and I believe it was Kevin Aioli once told us he's actually witnessed like 7 of these or something like that in his lifetime. Yeah. And they're tough for him to get over, just sitting there knowing that happened while you were there. And so you go to Twitter and you see some of the reactions from people, and there were some interesting things. Our own Simon Simano was even saying, like, think about this. Like, the next time you're out there booing and screaming at fighters, like, we all forget just how dangerous the sport is. I think some of us are like, we know what we signed up for. They know what they signed up for. And at worst, maybe the career's cut a little short or they don't get to their title shot. But we forget that it can be a life or death type situation. And it's tough to watch sometimes.
Yeah. And also that there's very little predicting these things. The only safeguard that's really in place, there's the trainer who hopefully is taking care of his fighter, and the referee who that's their first job is fighter safety. But that stuff is much more anecdotal. Like, that stuff is much more, I'm trying to get a physical, we're in the moment, but I'm trying to get a physical read. Is he, is he, or his eyes tracking me the way they're supposed to, and some things like that. Other than that, the only real safeguard is the athletic commission. You've got to hope that a fight is being reasonably sanctioned, that these two people have reasonable business fighting each other in terms of making it a fair fight. And honestly, I think that's one of the only things you can sort of constantly take a look at, is making sure you're not having some fighter or a fight fall through the cracks where this fight didn't have any business taking place to begin with, or that fighter didn't have any business fighting. But other than that, it just goes to show you that, somebody's eyeball isn't going to be dangling out of their head in one of these situations as a red flag for you to notice something a lot of times. Yeah. A lot of times it's going to be the most subtle of nuances, and it could look, not only could it look like 1,000 other fights you've seen, it might not even look like anywhere near the worst fight you've ever seen until it's too late.
I don't want to champion for a boxing versus MMA and the safety, because you'd be a fool if you thought this isn't going to eventually happen in mixed martial arts. This is going to happen one day on the big stage. And like Richard said, it may not even be something similar to this situation where it's just a cumulative of punches and you go, wow. Like, say Arlovsky and Rothwell the other day, right, where you look at them and you go, man, those guys took a beating from each other. It may not even be like that. It could be a one-punch situation. Like, think of all the little videos that you see on TV or on the internet, and somebody falls back and the way they hit their head or something, you find out later that person actually passed away. It's for sure going to happen in mixed martial arts. There's been deaths before, but none really on the really big stage. And I think like one of them was in an unsanctioned event. Another one, I think the guy had like a prior, was it like an aneurysm or something like that? I remember I had a friend that I went to school with that passed away that way on a roller coaster from the bumpiness of the roller coaster. Wow. It released something like a clot or something, and that's how he passed away. So there have been deaths in mixed martial arts, but I'm saying at the top stage, let's say the UFC, Bellator, those type of things, eventually it's going to happen, and we have to prepare ourselves for that thing. And it's good to be proactive, instead of reactive. And I guess some of the things that I've championed for this for a long time, but unless it's a title fight, maybe I can stomach a number one contenders or something. I kind of liked it better when it was 3 rounds. I feel like the shelf life of fighters has just gone down because of 5-round wars. Like, think about how many Frankie Edgar's been through. Benson Henderson, 5 rounds. Like, I don't even know if they're getting compensated for those extra 2 rounds, and how much longer the training camp is, how much less they can fight. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing it go back down to 3 rounds, unless it's for a title or something.
That would be an interesting, and it's going to take a lot of time, but that would be an interesting study to conduct. To look at fighters who fought the majority of, say, like you said, 1 or 2 title shots way back in the day, versus basically an entire career of 3-round fights, compared to, because you've got fighters now who they're going to challenge for a title once or twice, but you look at a guy on paper and you go, oh my gosh, when is the last time this guy wasn't in a main event? Because he's just got that marquee name value, even if it's been a long time since he's challenged for a title. And then those types of fighters are probably, when it's all said and done, maybe fight the majority of their career in 5-round fights.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big safety thing, but it's also like, think about all the injuries that these fighters
Yep.
constantly go through. And who knows what if that extra training camp, those extra weeks. 'Cause for the longest time, it was 8 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Then you get these guys that, well, we do 10. And now you have guys that say, well, I do 12. It's that extra training camp. It's the extra rounds that you're putting in. Like, not only do I want them to be safe, but I kind of want to see them available as well, to be able to take fights. And but anyways, why don't we do this? We'll take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll discuss a little bit of the ramifications of what's going to happen with this, and something that I think we talked off the air a little bit about. We'll bring that up when we come back. This is MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Fight Nation Channel 156. We will be right back.
Pro wrestling, MMA, and boxing all under one roof.
Oh, yeah!
Sirius XM Fight Nation.
Good, you're still here. The boys were just getting warmed up. Now the real show begins. Take it away, boys.
All right, we're back, and we are talking about unfortunate news. Maxim Dadashev passing away this morning from injuries he sustained in a boxing match. The little tease that we gave when we went out was a conversation that we were having off the air today, and it revolved around boxing and mixed martial arts. There's been a few fights that, well, one really famous fight that actually happened, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. And there's also been talks of Dana White the other day had talked about the possibility of Clarissa Shields fighting Amanda Nunes. And I was thinking, this tragedy that happened this morning, well, over the weekend, but this morning, is that almost like a wake-up call where you would think, maybe we should put this all to bed? Because these were two experienced boxers, and that outcome was not well. But now you're taking somebody who doesn't have experience in boxing and putting them in that world. Like, that could have been Conor McGregor. Floyd Mayweather is pinpoint accurate with his shots. He's not the heaviest puncher, but he could land a lot of shots over 12 rounds if he wanted to. It is a very dangerous situation, and I wonder if something like this is going to make commissions think a little bit more before they sanction that type of fight. What are your thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe they should. I mean, that was something that came up. Maybe we forget now, but that was something that came up in the build-up to McGregor-Mayweather, and the conversation about it was, wait a second, is an athletic commission going to sanction this? Mm-hmm. Because you're talking about sanctioning a fight between a multi-time world champion who's had 39 professional fights, all of which he's won, and a guy who hasn't even had an amateur boxing match. Granted, he's a professional mixed martial artist, champion in his own right, but that's a pretty big gap.
And that's the thing. It's not the same. Like, trust me, they're in the room, the practice room. They have boxing gloves. They're throwing at each other, but it's not the same as being in a boxing match where that's your entire focus. Your entire movement changes for something like that. Your counters, the way you're looking at everything changes. So to be able to do it in the practice room against a high-level opponent, let alone on the big stage, the biggest stage you could possibly imagine, it's a lot to ask for a mixed martial artist. And vice versa. If a boxer came over to mixed martial arts, I'm sure they take leg kicks in the gym or whatever, or even blocking head kicks, but when it happens at full speed in a fight, you're definitely going to be somewhere you've never been before.
That's 100% true. I mean, everything changes from your stance. For example, a boxer wants more of a bladed stance, more of a turning to the side, whereas, which is fine if you know that all that's going to happen is somebody's going to throw punches at you, because you want to be a sideways target as opposed to a flush face forward target. But in MMA, you've got to worry about a takedown. So you don't want that bladed stance. You want to turn and face them because you got to prepare to throw your underhooks in case they shoot in on you. I mean, there's so many more possibilities of things that can happen in an MMA fight than a boxing match in terms of offense that, yeah, it totally changes your perception of that. So it's like the difference between, a mixed martial artist is going into a boxing match up to that point, having had the mindset of, okay, well, there's, depending on the opponent I'm facing, a 30 to 60% chance from moment to moment that he's going to be throwing strikes versus kicks versus takedowns versus submission attempts. Whereas if you're in boxing, the boxer's mentality has always been, well, it's 100% likely that he's throwing a variation of a left or a right. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to happen, guaranteed.
Yeah, definitely. Even like coming down to just where you're at in the ring or the cage, even ring versus cage. Like if you hear some of the old Pride guys talking about coming over to the UFC and how difficult it was to just get used to not having that corner and how you had to move around. Like there's just so many things. And anyway, what I want to do right now is play some audio from TMZ. This is Dana White, and he's talking about Amanda Nunes possibly having a shot with Clarissa in boxing.
Do you think Amanda Nunes has any chance in a boxing fight?
She hits like a truck. Anybody that punches the way she does has a chance in a fight. But when you start crossing the boxing and the MMA,
you started it.
I didn't really start it. The fans did, but yeah, I was a part of it.
Any interest in making that fight Clarissa Shields, Amanda Nunes?
Amanda Nunes has things that she needs to do here first, but I'm not opposed to it.
You're not opposed to it. I love that.
Not opposed to it.
Clarissa Shields is no joke. Mm-hmm. Neither is Amanda Nunes, but they're best where they are currently. Yeah, Amanda Nunes hits hard, but again, like, boxers are so good at defense, and sometimes I feel like in mixed martial arts, defense gets put aside, and it's just like, I think I'm just going to hit you harder than you hit me.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen as often in boxing. Those guys are elusive, guys and gals. They're just not there, and I think it's so hard because they're just so used to when they see that hand rolling and tucking. There's so many different things that they can do to avoid your shots. it takes a long time to master those type of things. You look at kids like Canelo Alvarez, Floyd Mayweather. They've been doing that since they were kids. It's second nature to them. Amanda Nunes hits hard, but I don't know that Clarissa Shields would even be there for some of those punches. And Clarissa Shields hits hard as well.
It occurs to me that it would be easier to justify this going from boxing to MMA as opposed to from MMA to boxing. And here's why. If the boxer does the crossover fight, but they want to come to MMA, let's think about all the way back to Randy Couture and James Toney, okay? The boxer is going to have the striking advantage, more than likely the power advantage and all of that. However, no one is going to inadvertently be killed from a precision submission move. Maybe you're going to get a limb broken, or maybe even you get choked out for a second before the referee sees that you're out and stops it. But there is no kimura that is so bombastic that it's going to kill someone. See what I'm saying? So the possibilities of what is the worst case scenario, I think, are far different than, hey, somebody gets their brain rattled enough, we don't know what's going on in there until maybe it's too late. So if you're going to do one or the other, I think it would be much safer to take the boxer and put them in the MMA space than the MMA fighter and put them in boxing.
I agree. Do you feel like what happened this weekend would have some sort of merit over the possibility of these talks ever again?
As far as whether or not we should pump the brakes on it?
On boxing versus MMA and just...
Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. I think it's
right?
Yeah, it's like, why do it? The McGregor-Mayweather thing, I wasn't even in favor of doing that. But it was such an anomaly. It was such a perfect storm of not only two of the best in the sport, but those two particular personalities. I mean, is anyone going, wow, can you imagine the countdown shows and the press conferences if we have Amanda Nunes and Clarissa Shields fight? No.
Right.
That's just a skills equation, and I get the appeal, but now we're just at that point I feel like we're just kind of reaching. And you can find world-class top talent all day long to match up against each other. World-class boxer A against world-class mixed martial artist B. But for what at that point? That's just the sake of being the mad scientist in the chemistry lab, I would say.
What's your take on booing fighters? So that was one of the things that I saw on Twitter, and it did make me realize I've never been that guy. I've never been a guy that sits there and boos. Trust me, I've been unhappy in certain situations. I was at that Woodley Wonder Boy fight. I was at Derek Lewis and Ngannou. Was I? I thought I was. Yeah.
I sat next to you at Woodley and Wonder Boy.
I'm not saying that there are times where I'm not upset at the way a fight played out.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever gotten to the point where I've actually booed.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be people out there that says, I paid my money, you can't tell me what to do. But as soon as I read that comment, I thought about it.
One of those days.
And what's that? And I thought about that situation, and I kind of understood where he was coming from on that. How about you?
Yeah. And something that actually changed that for me was actually getting in there and doing it. And I wasn't prone to booing anyway.
Back it up and tell people what you do.
So I had an amateur MMA fight in December of last year, and I got another one coming up in October. But I wasn't prone to do it anyway, because I feel like even just being in media and covering it, we have a much more of an appreciation for that, just seeing what goes into this. But especially after doing it, because here's the thing. Both those guys or girls train for this for, like you said, anywhere from 8 weeks to 12 weeks. And it doesn't matter who you train with, what weight class you're training at. It is no joke. I mean, every professional gym that you can name has a group of professional fighters who are, I mean, we talk about, making it to the big show like the UFC, but every great professional fighter is not in the UFC. Not only are they not in the UFC, they're not even in Bellator and PFL and LFA. I mean, you can walk all the way out of any promotion you can name off the top of your head, and there are still great professional fighters in gyms that aren't, for whatever reason, signed to either one of those organizations. Those are the people you're training with every day. Those are the people you're coming up against every day. So whenever you see somebody, get knocked out in 6 seconds or something like that, of course the layman's take is to go, oh, well, it looked like he didn't even have any business being in there. But that's just not the case. I mean, again, unless an athletic commission sanctioned a fight they had no business sanctioning, and at top levels that does not happen. Trust me, both those people had equal training, equal experience, reasonably equal chances of being competitive, and it just turned out it was somebody's night, or somebody got a shot over on somebody else. But yeah, I would never boo that. I mean, is there anything to boo? I don't know. I mean, maybe if it's clear that someone is outclassing someone else, and you can just tell that they won't even try to go for a finish because they're just going to ride out the scorecards.
Were you okay with the light?
Yeah, I mean, look.
Some people put out their light, right?
Yeah,
that's their way of saying it.
You know what? Was that the first? That's when Damian Maia fought Tyron Woodley. That was in Anaheim, right? We were at that fight. It was on the undercard of Jones and Cormier. Yeah.
I've seen it here in Vegas too.
Yeah, but I think that was because the reason I remember it that night is because I think you, George, and I were all sitting right there, and we all started talking about what are they. Hey, we've never seen this before. Like, it's the first time we've ever seen it. I mean, that's a more polite way of doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
In fact, in some ways, it's kind of more intense because, yeah, you're not hearing it, but, boy, they are lighting that place up, with their displeasure. But that's kind of just putting a different name on it. I mean, I would just say I would not boo anybody's strategy, or even if somebody looks fatigued, things like that. I wouldn't express displeasure at that. Maybe only if I could see a situation where somebody was beyond playing it safe. I mean, somebody was just like, you know what, this fight could have been over with after 2.5 rounds, and you're taking it all the way to 5 just because you're padding a lead. I mean, there's degrees of that. Even at that, if I were a fan, I wouldn't be booing it. I couldn't boo anybody that had the guts to get in there. I just couldn't do it.
The first time I realized all that was, oh man, I can't mention the name of the fighter, but I was sitting with the fighter, and it was probably around the UFC. It was before 100.
Okay.
80s, 90s, around there. And somebody that was a fan, that was the kick his ass, Seabass, booing, doing all kinds of stuff. And the fighter I was with got up, walked over to that guy, and said, "You have no idea the guts it takes to get in there and the preparation and all that." And he said, "I get that you can boo, that you're allowed to boo, but I'm going to sit here right next to you. And let's see if you have the balls to do it in front of me and boo, and see how I react to that now." And I don't think that fighter was going to hurt him.
Yeah.
But he just wanted him to have that feeling of doing that same expression kind of to somebody's face. And man, that guy was as silent as possible for the rest of that card. Well, for that fight. He sat there, and they shut up for the rest of the card.
That would put me in a tough predicament. Because I wouldn't have been there in the first place, because I wouldn't have been booing him. But let me just say either that I had, or that I knew the guy who was doing it, or whatever. It would be tough, because there's a part of me that if I got challenged like that and he sat down next to me, I would start throwing out such erroneous analysis, breaking it down, talking about all the things the guy that was doing wrong. Because now it's a contest to see if he can stand to stay seated next to me until the fight ends. See, that's a tough one.
Will breaks first?
Yeah, now there's a whole other game going on. I don't know.
That's why if you don't like people booing you, you got to make your nickname the Ghost. That way when they boo you, they're actually cheering you.
Ooh.
Ever think of that?
Wow. No.
I told Tim Sylvia, you don't like people booing you? Be the Ghost. Be Tim the Ghost Sylvia. When you walk out, people go, boo. Technically, they're like, hell yeah, that's my dude.
That is genius.
You're boo-proof.
Do you know that's why when you go to a Bruce Springsteen concert, everybody goes Bruce like that, and to the uninitiated, it sounds like booze.
Yeah.
But that's a great idea.
Thank you. Well, on that, let's take this second commercial break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM Fight Nation Channel 156. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Greg Hardy. We'll be right back.
All clear, guys.
Good, you're still here. The boys were just getting warmed up. Now the real show begins. Take it away, boys.
Here's SiriusXM Now when you are out of the car. Now included with your most SiriusXM subscriptions, hear more of what you love, get more control over how you listen, and have more ways to listen anytime or anywhere you want it. SiriusXM Video gives you a backstage pass to your favorite shows available online and on the app. Just create a username and password, and you're ready to start streaming. Learn more at SiriusXM.com/more. You know what I realized, Richard?
What's up?
We need our own rejoins.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? His hair's so black. Something. You know.
Oh yeah, that would be good. Get it from the is the Take It Away Ladies guy. Is he still available to do voiceovers?
I don't know if that
that
guy,
dude's still available.
He's still around.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still around.
Okay. Maybe could we write some?
I just found out that Richards never had short hair in his life.
Nope.
That's odd.
Yeah. I'll show you my third grade picture of me wearing my Kiss iron-on T-shirt with probably the shortest hair I've ever had, which is just like a Beatle.
cut?
Yeah, like I look like the Beatles in 1963. That's the shortest it's ever been.
All right, I can't wait to see that.
Hey, I'm sorry, real quick. I just thought of another one on your genius ghost nickname idea.
Mm-hmm.
If you and I were going to fight each other, and I got wind that you were doing that ghost nickname thing, but I also found out that you were Portuguese right before I agreed to our fight taking place in Brazil.
Okay.
I would then see your Boo nickname, and I would change my nickname to Woo Bobblehead. So when the fans start chanting Woo Bobblehead, it'll sound like they're chanting in support of me. They're chanting my name.
I didn't think about that.
Then we'll have a standoff.
So either way, the crowd's on our side.
Yeah, we'll have a nickname standoff. It'll sound like they're super supportive
They'd
of
be
both
so
of
mad.
us.
Yeah. Huh. Pretty good one. I like that.
Okay.
Let's talk a little Greg Hardy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing on Greg Hardy. Good performance, I thought, for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what we can really say about Juan Adams, whether he was top level or not. Greg Hardy came out and fought. What I want to talk about are his post-fight antics. Okay? I don't know how long. There are going to be some people that are going to say, look, this dude's just not going to win me over. And there are going to be some people that say, I believe in second chances, and I got to give the dude the benefit of doubt. When George and I were watching this fight live, all we could think about was, if he really wants to change his image, I just think there's a few things he could tweak that would make that process a little easier. And his reactions afterwards, the faces he made, and some of the, throat slash and that type, just doesn't help, man. It really just doesn't help. Now, I can't tell if I'm just being a negative Nancy, if I'm a sensitive guy, I don't know. But I would rather every fighter that comes out succeed and people like him. But he says that he wants to kind of change things around. That just doesn't seem to work. What do you think?
Completely agree with you on his post-fight antics. So, quick positioning statement on Greg Hardy. And not Greg Hardy as an individual so much as it is someone in Greg Hardy's situation, meaning documented record of domestic abuse, conviction on it before. I mean, that whole thing about how it was overturned on appeal, he got off with a technicality, and that's fine in the eyes of the law, but he was convicted by a jury on that. And in my opinion, no one who has a proven history of being violent toward women, kids, animals, should have any business fighting as a professional mixed martial artist. I just don't believe it. Mm-hmm. I think, and a big part of that is me believing that this sport has a stigma that it's always going to have to work to overcome with the uninitiated. I mean, rare is it that you start talking to somebody about what you do in this sport or how you follow it or let alone if you participate in it, to the completely uninitiated. Anybody goes, oh, that seems like a rational, reasonable decision. It's usually a whole lot of, oh, my God, what? Mm-hmm. Huh? How can you? But what? Oh, no. And then you've got to work them down from there, right? So, I mean, just such is the plight of the sport. Okay. So because of that, this isn't like other sports. Because it's got that built-in stigma with it, you're always going to have to work against that. And so I think it's fine for those things, for if you have had a history of picking on something weaker than you, especially to the point that you cause it serious harm, you're disqualified from doing this. And I'll tell you this, if you walked into a gym and the black belts are having their class over here, okay, and a new black belt comes walking in, let's say, and he sees the white belts over in the other corner, And rather than going over to the black belts, where he just goes over and starts wreaking havoc with the white belts, the black belts don't cheer him on. They're not like, haha, that's awesome, look at what he's doing to everybody that's so much weaker than him. Mm-hmm. That guy better get to his car before the black belts catch up to him at the door. So if that's the rule in gyms, then to me that can be the rule in professional fighting. Okay, so there's that, all right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean you can't go out and have a job doing something else, but, you know, if you're on a sex offender registry, you can still work, but you can't get a job at the daycare. You just aced yourself out of that occupation. Okay. So, but all that being said, if Greg Hardy's going to be able to do this, and he truly wants to talk about what a change man he is and all this, head down, eyes forward, focus. And that is it. And if a Juan Adams comes along and tries to needle you about whatever you did, you got one response. You know what? You got me there. I've made mistakes I am not proud of, and I'm just glad I've got a chance to do something about it. Definitely not the Greg Hardy route this time around of, hey, thanks for having my name in your mouth, promoting me. Thanks for buying a ticket. I see what you're doing. Keep talking about me.
Yeah.
While I lick my hands. No, don't do any of that.
Well said. All right, we're going to take our last break. We do have Dave Doyle coming up. This is MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM Fight Nation Channel 156. We will be right back.
Your paradise away from your passions being called.
Take it away, boys.
All right, so we are going to shuffle the deck a little bit here. The problem is this. What we were talking about was pretty interesting, and I don't want to short Dave Doyle. 9 minutes is not long enough to really dive in and get to know who he is, and that's kind of the whole point of what we're going to do. So we're going to reshuffle him to the second hour, and we're going to continue what we were talking about before we went to break, and that's Greg Hardy. Not just Greg Hardy's in-ring, in-cage performance, but the way he conducts himself after the fight. Richard, was there anything you wanted to add to that? Because I felt like I kind of cut you off.
No, I'm resting my case.
You're resting your case? All right. So you and I had similar takes, similar feelings as to it wasn't a good look. Like, trust me, man, I'm a guy, I want people to succeed. I want people to be liked. I don't agree with what he did. Maybe I'm a prick. There's just something about me that I will always maybe have a little bit of a stigma. I'm a second chance guy, but I think those type of things anger me. But just those little antics afterwards, it just does not help one bit. Mm-mm. It really doesn't. And I wish maybe like his coaches or his teammates or somebody just could kind of get in his ear and go, dude, exactly the way you said, just kind of put your head down. I'm not even saying you got to be like that for the rest of your career. Give us 2 or 3 fights of that guy.
Yeah.
And once after a year, we've seen you fight, you've said all the right things. All right, somebody gets in your face a little bit more, but at least you've kind of shown us that you've changed a little bit.
And you can still be charming guy. You can still be funny guy. You talk about your kids, whatever. But it's the bravado of it in the face of, and I'm talking about in the face of when somebody is bringing that stuff up. You can't look at it like you would anything else where, okay, well, he's going to, bring up a bad fight in my career or a weak moment in my career, and I'm going to turn that around on him and try to talk it right back to him. In a lot of cases, you can do that. But with this particular subject matter, no, you just concede defeat in that one area.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I think that is your best shot at winning over people who are down on you like I am for those reasons, because you do not give them any further ammo than what you've already done, which is pretty devastating.
Mm-hmm. Let's play a little of the audio of his post-fight interview. This is him talking about adding to his game.
Who saw the wizard? That's all I'm saying. I'm super proud of myself. Shout out to my wrestling coaches, best in the country, best in the world. I'm making little developments, man. Like I keep telling you, everybody wants to talk about, the cockiness and the things that I say on camera, but everybody forgets the last statement, man. I go back and I'm going to work. I'm going to fix things. I'm going to add skills. This is an everyday occurrence. This is an everyday thing, and I'm not going away.
I didn't forget the last statement. I just didn't care about the last statement because of the statements that were made before it. See, that's what he doesn't understand.
They don't go hand in hand.
No, they don't. They're not parallel. I would have cared more about the last statement if the previous statements hadn't preceded it, but you canceled out the effectiveness of the last statement by making the statements that went before that. Someone needs to have this conversation.
Everything he said at the beginning, I was cool with.
Sure.
Until he got to that point. Let's play this second clip. This is him on the final sequence of the fight.
Oh, yeah.
Just walk us through it.
I mean, man, look, he was a good opponent, man. He hit me a couple of times. I mean, I don't doubt he's not a great guy. I don't know that personally, but you're down there, you get hit 30 some odd times, man, and the ref is, I think he said 3 times, defend yourself, Juan. You got to do something. And I kind of felt his body go limp. I was banging on his head, so I kind of slowed the pace down to see if he was going to react or do something, something so I could play some defense. And then when he didn't, I just, I went in for the finish after I heard him say 2-3 times, defend yourself, and he didn't, so Dan gave him plenty of warnings.
What's crazy is a guy in that situation, too, I have so much respect for people that come from other sports.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to be a professional athlete in anything, man, to be one of the best. Even curling, whatever. That dude's got my respect in the curling world. But to say, I'm going to stop doing this, and I'm going to play this sport, and not only play it, but try and be at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of respect for people that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just these things, man, that I don't know. I don't know if I'm bitter or what my deal is, but let's play this last clip. It's about Juan Adams and him wanting to take him down.
The same as last time, man. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna train. You know, I have a objective in mind, and it's being a student and also being in camp. So I don't really have time to think about all that, man. This Juan was the guy I wanted to see. Everybody said I was ducking opponents. You guys were super hyped about the Juan Adams. This was the one that's gonna take me down, and I finished him. So whoever they put in front of me again, we'll get the same treatment, man. No matter who it is, ranked, non-ranked, number 1, number 2, number 3. I'm here for it. I haven't backed down yet.
I'm all right with that. Richard, what are your thoughts on who we should fight next?
Cyril Asker.
That's your guy?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go the celebrity route.
Nope. The silverback.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for here, if Cyril Asker just happens to be listening, imagine how excited he is right now.
Uh-huh.
You know? Because now I'm going to plead his case for him. Actually, so my thought is this. So you said, who should he fight next? So I look through the heavyweight roster. By the way, did not realize Brendan Schaub is still on there. Somebody's got to tell me why he's still on the UFC heavyweight roster on their website. But I was looking for someone who Juan Adams was like 5-1, 6-1, I think, something like that. That's roughly about the same record that Greg Hardy has. So we're either going to have to go with somebody. We're still going to look for somebody who's got a similar record, but we're also going to either go with somebody. It's either going to be a matter of, okay, are you going to give him a striker, but somebody who is definitely a level up, or are you going to kind of pull from the middle of the pack body, but find somebody who might have a little more of a skill set toward, let's see what happens when he takes on a decent wrestler or something like that. You know, let's see what he can do with that.
But you can definitely agree that whoever it is, it's time for like a little step up, right?
It is. Cyril Asker is 9-4. Coming off of a loss, and normally you don't see that. You're not going to see a guy coming off of a win match up with a guy with a loss, but we're giving him a step up in competition, so I think that helps Hardy a little bit. Now, Asker did just fight Tai Tuivasa, but he got knocked out 2 minutes into the first round. The fights that he has lost in the UFC, and he's had, relatively speaking, certainly to Hardy, bigger name opponents like Tai Tuivasa, like Walt Harris, but he was knocked out in the first round of both those fights. He also fought Jared Cannonier and was knocked out by him in the first round. So the history says that when this guy faces tough striking competition, he is prone to the first round KO. I think he's got one UFC sub on his record. Not a particularly effective striker, 39% striking accuracy. I am on the Cyril Asker bandwagon.
That's not bad. I mean, you definitely, come on, man. I mean, I know it's the heavyweight division, but you can't have some dude at like 6-0 in the heavyweight division and not be close near a title shot. So definitely that level's got to start jumping up, and I don't know that I'm sure some of them top dogs he could take out a few here and there, but I just don't see him doing it consistently the way a Stipe Miocic would, a Fabricio Verdum would. Anyway, it's the top of the hour break. When we come back, we'll come back with Yves Edwards, good friend of the show. We'll be right back.
Boys.
All right, we're back. MMA Junkie Radio. I'm Goz. That is Richard Hunter. Gorgeous George is off today because he's at Dana White's Contender Series, and he probably doesn't want to be called Squishy Man by our next guest, who's Yves Edwards, PFL analyst. He's here to promote Week 5 of the PFL, July 25th in Atlantic City, New Jersey on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and ESPN Deportes. What's up, Yves?
Not much, Goz. Where's Squishy Man?
Squishy Man could not be here today. He's at Dana White's Contender Series, but he said to say hello. He misses you.
I miss him too, but is that why you used the drop that said the best show ever?
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, I'll tell you what. He did say he misses you, but what did kind of help was seeing you and Eric Nixick out there hitting pads together. Two guys that we took on one of our military trips. It was so cool to see you guys reunited.
When Eric comes out, man, he usually brings tough guys with him, and getting to work pads and work mitts with him, trying to get myself back in shape, you know?
Oh, come on, man.
Know. I might have to hit somebody soon.
You are always in shape. Are you saying you fell out of shape? Well, what does that mean when you say you fell out of shape? Because for fighters, a couple 5 extra pounds or something like that's falling out of shape. For us, it's like, 2 or 3 shirts upgrade.
Yeah, I don't want to say, but I got on the scale and it said too much.
So to be continued?
Yeah, to be continued. There you go. That's even better.
All right, let's talk a little bit about PFL Week 5. We've been having fun so far with PFL this year, and this event has a main event of Ahmed Aliyev versus Chris Wade. George, Dan, Tom, and I last night broke this fight down, and I was on the side of Aliyev, and the other two were on Chris Wade's side. Let's see if we can maybe create a tie, or if everybody can just bring it down on me. But Yves, how do you see this fight playing out? What are some of the key factors for both guys?
The key factors really is wrestling. Is Chris Wade going to be able to take Aliyev down, control him, and dominate position? Because we didn't see a lot of Aliyev's wrestling or his wrestling defense in the first fight. We saw a little bit. But we know he's got pop, we know he can punch hard, and we know he's aggressive, right? And the thing about his wrestling, where I'm concerned, is he's a Dagestani fighter, and virtually every single one of those guys has solid wrestling. So seeing how Chris engages with him in the wrestling department, that's going to tell us a lot. But we're going to have to wait and find out. This is one of those fights I'm excited about because Wade has changed his style. He's a little bit more aggressive early in the fight. He wants to come after you. He wants to get it. He knows he needs to score to get into the playoffs. So he's going to be pushing the action because he wants $1 million and another shot at Nathan's shoulder.
Aliyev can be a little bit of a risk taker, but against a guy like Chris Wade, and the way you broke it down, some of those risks can be a little bit more dangerous because Chris can take you down. He has that style that's actually really well for PFL fighters. Do you believe that Aliyev will look similar to how he has in some of his past fights, or do you feel like maybe he'll have to be a little bit more reserved in the start of the fight?
I don't think he has that in him to be more reserved. Aliyev, he's aggressive. He likes to be open. He's creative in there. A lot of what I get, especially out of him and Movlid Kaibulev, is they just like to fight. They just do what it is that they want to do. And it seems like a lot of the Dagestani guys are like that. They train every aspect of the fight game. All that combat sambo experience helps so much. I mean, it's amateur and we don't count it, but a lot of these guys come into MMA with like 100+ fights under their belt. 50 to 100 fights under their belt. Yes, combat sambo, but it's so close to mixed martial arts. And I don't think that because of all that experience, because of how comfortable he seems to be in there, I just don't think he's going to hold back. He's not gonna have the safety on. I think he's just gonna be wide open like he always is. And yes, that does present Chris opportunities to take him down. But again, we go back to his experience. Chris has a lot of experience in wrestling, but wrestling is about control and not necessarily the submission game. Combat Sambo has everything in it, submission, control, punching, and whatnot. So he's got a little more comfort, I believe, in that department. And I don't know if Chris is going to be able to control him like he wants to be able to land shots on top. I like that they made this fight the final, the feature fight, because that the style matchup is really interesting to me, man.
Yeah, it was really good. It was fun breaking that down. We got a co-main event of Lance Palmer versus Luis Rafael Laurentino. This should be really fun. Lance Palmer, we know the one of his biggest strengths is his wrestling, but his pace is just incredible that he can keep it going that long. He's just in your face. He never goes away. Tell us how you see this fight playing out.
He's in your face and he doesn't get tired, right? When you look at this fight, I think you should go in there because of the skill set, what these guys are bringing into the cage. I feel like you've got to give Lance Palmer that edge because of that wrestling pedigree that he has. Rafael Laurentino, he's a great striker. He's a good submission specialist. He looks competent in wrestling, but I mean, I'm not going to say that he's anywhere near Lance Palmer's level, but his submission game, he'll be able to offer up some threat or at least create some scrambles and maybe even present himself with some opportunities to get back to his feet should Lance be able to take him down or want to. And he's wide open on his feet. He likes to throw combinations, big punches, big kicks. He throws everything. And I am excited about this fight also because Lance's style. Lance is with Frankie Edgar and the guys in Jersey now. And like you said, he's always coming forward. He's always moving. He doesn't get tired. He's just always in your face. The Frankie Edgar mentality. I would love to go up to their training camp and watch him and Frankie spar because, like, they would probably give me 15, 20 rounds of just go, go, go. They're both about the same size. They both fight in the same weight class. Mm-hmm. And he's definitely going to bring some new wrinkles to the game when he steps in the cage on Thursday night. But Rafael Laurentino's got so much experience, man. Yes, we talk about Lance's experience in wrestling, but, I mean, Laurentino is 34-1. He's got a good submission game. He's got tons of knockouts. That fight, I think that's the fight where Lance is going to have to open us and show us a little more than just his wrestling control and looking to work to submission.
I would want to be there with you to watch that sparring match, and all I can think about is them going at it, and then at the end, Marlon Moraes stepping up going, I got next. Can you imagine that beast is still in the room waiting to get in there? Come on. That would be a nightmare.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm on the other side. Wait until they're done with, 40 rounds, and then I think, okay, I'm on.
Yeah.
You guys look like you might be tired now.
PFL Week 5 analyst Yves Edwards is joining us on the program. Don't forget, you can catch the PFL July 25th in Atlantic City, New Jersey on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and ESPN Deportes. Richard Hunter, what do you have for Yves Edwards?
Yeah, Yves, I wanted to ask you about a little PFL side note that made some news today. I don't know if you saw it or not, but the PFL signed Brendan Loughnane. Now, that is a guy who just seems like we talked about for a couple of weeks on this show goes, because he had been on Dana White's Contender Series. He was not given a contract, and a lot of people felt like he had a standout performance. He was can't-miss talent, and he got snubbed. He should have gotten a contract. And I said on the show, we were talking about, I said, boy, some other organization would be crazy not to snap this guy up right now. And I specifically mentioned Bellator, PFL, and it looks like PFL, with an eye toward the future always, went ahead and grabbed him today. I don't know if you saw that note, Yves, or if you had any reaction to it, but that seemed like a pretty smart move on the organization's part.
Been doing some things today that kept me away from the internet. I checked in on my Instagram, my Twitter a little bit, but we did some get some training in with Eric Nixick. But I'm super excited about that, man. The PFL is really, really good about trying to pick up young talent, young international talent, and Loughnane, coming out of Great Britain. I mean, he's a stud. 17-3. I'm excited to see him step in the cage next season. I want to go look up and see. Wait, is he replacing somebody this season? He can't be replacing somebody this season. But I don't know. I want to go and see if he's coming into the game next. I'm so excited about this pickup. You just told me something I did not know.
Well, that's
There you go.
I'm always here to lend a hand.
Yves, I want to ask
I
you.
appreciate that, man.
No problem, man.
I want to ask you a couple quick more questions. That just things that I've been kind of curious with PFL. I know you've been there for a while now, and you know how things roll. The locker room environment. You have a locker room there with fighters that have all either fought each other or many of them eventually will. What is their locker room like compared to other locker rooms that you've been in?
Man, that is a good question. Honestly, when I go backstage, sometimes it's similar to other locker rooms. You know, you kind of keep to yourself. It's a little bit different in the sense that everybody knows that they're in the room with a potential opponent in the future. But the attitude, the attitude is different though. The attitude, everybody's pretty friendly, very cordial. There's not a lot of animosity, and I think that's because in the end it's truly up to you. It's what are you going to do? You know, are you going to step up and press the action, try to gain those points that'll get you in the playoffs? But nobody seems to be tentative or wanting to hide their techniques or even concerned with the other guys. Everybody just kind of keeps to themselves. Just like every other locker room. I mean, they mingle and they interact with each other a little bit. They cheer each other on. But I honestly wish I could be back there, especially during the playoffs when guys are, watching the monitors to see who's coming up next, who they may have to fight next on the same night, and then after they're all done to see who they may face in the finals. Also, guys that also stepped out there and possibly lost their fight, but are concerned that maybe they hurt their opponent and they're going to be back. We had that happen last season with Bojan Velishkovic. You know, he lost his match, but he got the lucky loser spot and he was able to come back out. But he did lose again to the eventual champion, Magomed Karamov. But the locker room is very similar, but the mentality, the attitude and the behavior is the same. But I'm sure the mentality is a little different. But nobody really talks, and I'm not spending a lot of time back there. Now you make me want to go back there a little bit more, and I can't get away, man. I hate when I'm at the desk and I really have to pee, and I don't really have to pee. I just try to use that as an excuse to go back to the locker room, but I can't ever get away.
Oh man, now I gotta pee. All you gotta do is plant that in my head and like that. All right, and Yves, last question from me. World Series of Fighting, when they first started, their first card was here in Vegas, and now PFL is going to be coming back. Not just to Vegas, but Mandalay Bay. This is where our studio is. 3 cards here at Mandalay Bay. Can you talk about that importance of almost like that fighting soul to be able to fight here in the fight capital of the world, coming to the Mandalay Bay? That's got to get you excited, right?
Yeah, it definitely gets me excited. I remember my first fight in Las Vegas was at Mandalay Bay. My fight with Matt Serra, and that's like, for me as an individual, that was like arriving. You know what I mean? And now for the PFL, I know World Series started in Las Vegas, but with the PFL and the playoff format, especially the playoffs being in Las Vegas, I think that's super exciting. Why? Las Vegas is the fight capital of the world. You know, that's where everybody wants to fight. That's where, Mayweather, Tyson fought there. The greatest have fought there. Muhammad Ali fought in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the place where everybody wants to be as a fighter. That's the cream of the crop. That's the event or the city that means that you're at the top of the heap when, as a promotion, as a fighter, as any of these things. And for the PFL to do the playoffs there, the things that are going to the fights that are going to lead all of the fighters to fight for that $1 million on New Year's Eve. I mean, Madison Square Garden on New Year's Eve, that's the only place that could compare to Vegas as a venue that has history like that. And but we're talking about one individual place that's iconic, and then we're talking about a city that's iconic. I'm so happy that the PFL is there. This is a huge, huge move, and I am definitely going to be in studio with you guys, whether you want me
Love
or
it.
not. I'm fighting my way if that's a problem.
You know, the one thing that scares me about PFL being here in Vegas at Mandalay Bay is you work so hard to make $1 million, but I don't want to see one of them guys walking with one of them giant checks going, give me $1 million on red.
Mm-hmm. Do you know that there are some casinos that pay I know this from doing comedy. There's some casinos that pay comedians in chips.
Really?
You can go cash them. You can just go get your cash. It's not a problem. But they add that extra step just in case you want to let a little bit
evil.
ride.
That is evil.
Yep.
All right.
I just wonder if I could roll up to like a roulette table. But you just lost your money because you always bet on black, goes. But I wonder if I could roll to a roulette table with a big check and put it all on black.
Yeah. Can you imagine? That'd be pretty dope. All right, Yves. Thank you very much for your time. Again, it's PFL Week 5, July 25th, Atlantic City, New Jersey on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and ESPN Deportes. You can't miss it. Yves, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, goes. And I will see you in Vegas in just a few months.
Love it. All right, buddy. Thank you very much. We are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we reshuffle the deck a little bit. We will come back with Dave Doyle, our senior editor here at MMAJunkie.com.
Take it away, boys.
All right, we're back, and we are back with another guest. This week we've been trying to feature some of our new talent at MMA Junkie, and yesterday we had Simon Samano. He came on and he started a little bit of the introduction and how he came about hiring some of these people. And Dave Doyle, our next guest, he's MMA Junkie senior editor. It's kind of unique because we felt like we hired him and he was the new guy for like a week, and then all of a sudden we had all this new talent. Now he's the crafty veteran of our staff, but he's a senior editor. He's Dave Doyle. You can follow him at Dave Doyle MMA. What's up, Dave? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How y'all doing?
Not too bad. Welcome to MMA Junkie Radio. I'm happy that we have you on the radio side, but we got to get you in studio the next time you're out here.
Absolutely. It's been a little too long since I've been out that way, but next time I'm in town, for sure.
So one of the purposes of these interviews is not only to introduce you to the audience. A lot of them know you. They know your work. But there's so many cool things about everybody's personal lives that we just don't know. And I know I get a kick out of watching Dave and his bike riding. I've asked him a few questions about that. But before we get into all that stuff, let's start off with just how did you end up writing about mixed martial arts?
Man, that's an interesting story because I was, like a lot of people who have been doing this a long time, right? We all started off as fans, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't know about you guys, but like the first UFC I watched, I'm in my 40s, so the first UFC I watched was actually UFC 3, and I was a fan all through that first kind of burst in the 90s, and fell off a little bit once the UFC fell off pay-per-view, and by the time they got back on pay-per-view and started to become big again, I'd been working as a sports journalist for a while. I had been at the Boston Globe for a bit, just doing your regular old stick and ball sports. And I was working at FoxSports.com. I had just moved out here to LA in 2005. And again, I was a fan still. And the night if you remember when Randy Couture fought Chuck Liddell the third time after the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, that at the time that was like by far the biggest fight in UFC history. And I'm working at the desk of FoxSports.com, and I'm like, man, here we got, like, results coming in from every big boxing match in the country, and there's, like, not a word about this giant UFC fight. So I started nagging my boss at Fox Sports at the time, just like, hey, dude, there's, like, literally, like, millions of people watching The Ultimate Fighter, and the sports sites aren't doing anything about it, because back then, again, you had Sherdog, and you had your internet forums and all that, but none of the major websites, the big sports websites were covering it. So I just nagged my boss over and over until he basically told me to write a feature on the UFC just to just to get me off his back. And then the story clicked ridiculously well, and one thing kind of led to another. And then another night I'm at Fox, and I'm at, I basically, again, things have changed in the internet over the years. I started writing. I decided one night, I'm like the late guy on the desk at Fox. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start writing a weekly column about MMA. And without even asking anyone, I went and put it up on the site on Fox Sports. And if you did that in any newsroom today, you would get fired on the spot. You would get fired on the spot, right? But it was still a little Wild West back then. So I put it up without asking anyone. And again, it did great numbers. And my boss just shrugged and said, all right, let's run with this. And a year later, Yahoo became like the first big sports website that just kind of went all in on MMA, and they hired me. And I don't know, 13 years later, here I am with MMA Junkie. But it's funny because, now kids coming up are asking me, how did you get in? Well, guess what? I was kind of the first one at the big websites, and you're not going to be able to just decide to write a column and stick it on a big website and not tell anyone. So, you can't get in the way I did, that's for sure.
That's a great story. I want to ask you a little bit more about that. So when you posted the story, how long after you did that did you tell your editors that you had done? Like, did you wait to see if it made good traffic first, or did you just go, look, I did this thing and hope it played out?
Pretty much. I just put it up there. I actually remember it was on Joe Diesel Riggs was fighting on, like, the main event of a UFC fight night, and set up an interview with him and put it on the site. And again, it was just started clicking gangbusters. So I just left it up there and, let the people at Fox figure it out for themselves. And then part of it was a little bit of dumb luck. Like, you have to be in the right place at the right time sometimes. And at this exact same time was when, I'm in LA, UFC 59 was in Anaheim with Tito Ortiz against Forrest Griffin. Mm-hmm. And then the very next one after that was Hughes against Gracie at the Staples Center. Yeah. And Fox would not have sent me, like, on the road to cover anything, but they were like, yeah, go do this, go to these shows, and I rode off of those shows and, again, found an audience, and the snowball just kind of started rolling from there.
Wow, that Anaheim card, the one thing that I remember about that the most was it was one of the first times where you could really say that first round with Tito and Forrest was like a clear 10-8. For the longest time, that was the one where we went, that's your 10-8 right there. If it looked anything like that, that's where a 10-8 would go. I remember that. And then, of course, the next card, I mean, we got to meet Rorion Gracie, Helio Gracie. That was a big one. And just seeing the crowd, like the crowds were finally starting to come up with their gear on. There were a lot of celebrities. I don't know if you remember, Paul Walker was there. There were a lot of Paris Hilton shoved George almost to the ground. Did you guys ever hear about that?
No.
Yeah, she walked right in front of him, like shoved him completely out of the way. It was and George, being George, he tried to kind of like he was taking a charge in basketball. Whoa! He did
like
that
the
whole
soccer
thing.
Where they flop on the field.
A little bit, yeah.
Had to be carried off.
He flopped on that card, but yeah, those are some good times, man.
You know, I'm sorry to interrupt, another person who was there that night that I'll never forget at Staples Center, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson actually showed up and was in his seat in the front row in time for the first preliminary bout of the night.
Really?
That's like a lot of the celebrities, they just kind of show up whenever, but that was like, okay, The Rock's pretty hardcore about this, and he knows what he's watching.
You know something, Dave? I think a lot of celebrities, that's a great point you bring up. I think a lot of celebrities miss out on an opportunity there, because if you show up and you're in your ringside seat for the first fight of the card, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get like unimpeded camera time, generally surrounded by a sea of empty seats, and that's just if you're Joe Schmo. If you got a movie to promote or something, I would make sure that person is seated in that seat, and then they're just going to be on camera alone for like the first 3 or 4 fights.
Absolutely, and like I said, I mean, this is 13 years ago now, and I still remember it. So, you know, that's hopefully their PR types listening to that.
Kazushi Sakuraba was there as well.
Oh,
yeah, there were a lot of people there. That was a big deal, man.
Really exciting, yeah. It was a really exciting time.
Dave, now, was there at any time during this journey, was there ever any moment that you can remember that may have actually taken you in another direction?
How do you mean?
So in other words, like, hey kid, you're doing really good with this MMA stuff. How about you give baseball a try or something like that, or a different job that...
No, you know what? Honestly, like, if I had been at a point with my career where if the MMA thing hadn't, like, taken off the way that it did, I probably would have figured out something else to do with my life, because I had kind of been there and done that. And, you know, I am still a sports fan, but, you know, I'd done just enough of the, like... So you're in, like, you know, back in Boston, like you're in the Patriots locker room and you have to ask this, like, defensive back, like, oh, what were you thinking when you intercepted the ball? And they're giving you these canned answers. And I'm just like, oh, I cannot do this for the next 40 years of my life, you know? And granted, you know, in MMA we have the guys who are just like, yeah, I'll fight whoever Dana wants me to fight. But by and large, the people and the personalities are just so interesting that, you know, I don't think I can ever get bored with this. So, you know, I had always had in the back of my mind, like, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go, you know, I don't know, drive a truck or something. But it, you know, hey, I mean, knock on wood, we're 13 years in and it hasn't come to that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, MMA Junkie Senior Editor Dave Doyle joins us on the program. Richard Hunter, what do you have for Dave Doyle?
You know, Dave, you just made me think of something. Talking about being around covering MMA for as long as you have and starting to cover it, not at the very beginning, but certainly when it was still growing and needed publicity and, you know, you put a story up like you talk about and it starts getting all those hits. Does something stand out in your mind? It's easy for us to remember the times where, boy, this is when we realized the sport was getting bigger, when we saw it in this stadium for the first time, or we saw these pay-per-view numbers for the first time. But I also think about the times where we saw the flip side of that, where something happened and we were like, okay, this isn't our fun little sport anymore. This thing is growing, and now we can't get away with just throwing a story up on the site and telling the boss later, whatever, or something with the promotion. Does anything like that come to mind where you realize that, you know, maybe it's not quite as much of the Wild West as you remember, and maybe in this particular sense, maybe not quite as much fun now that we have more rules to follow?
Yeah, I don't know if there is one specific, like, when you keep saying that, the word Reebok keeps popping in my head.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Somewhere along the way you started to realize that, okay, this is turning into a really big business and it's going to be treated accordingly. I feel like there was just kind of like a little chain of events. Going to Fox was a big one.
Yeah.
The UFC getting on network television, and of course, Elite XC Strikeforce had been on CBS a bit, but that wasn't quite the same thing. But there's there was, again, just this string of the UFC being on Fox. That was a big deal that made it suddenly seem more big time. There was the Reebok thing and the sponsorship market kind of cratering in the wake of that. That, again, it was like, well, this is a pretty big deal. I think the USADA, for all the pros and cons, and we can argue about that all day. Like, the fact that they would bring USADA in, so that if you remember around the time that they brought USADA in, you had had like the Anderson Silva Nick Diaz fight where both guys got suspended, and just kind of like a string of bad stuff. So they clearly realized that they had to, they had to kind of clean up, I guess. So just all those big kind of benchmarks that just said, like, okay, this is a big business now, and it ends up with WME buying it, and now, okay, the old generation really over with. But it was, I'd like to say, I didn't have one aha moment. It was just things kind of kept piling up.
Yeah.
All right, and Dave, we kind of teased that we wanted to get into a little bit of your personal life. The one thing that I noticed is that biking, man. Dude, you list the amount of miles that you do, and that's incredible. How did you get started in all that?
And part of it just, part of it's just like, hey, if you do this long enough for being around MMA, where it's just this 24/7, 365-day a year, no off-season thing. Like, I realized somewhere a few years ago, like, I just need to have a hobby that gets, even if it's just a day a week, I need to put my phone down, put my computer down, and get out there and, just do something that's completely like 180 degrees different than what I'm doing with my life the rest of the week. And part of it's just my, look, I'm a big-ish guy. I used to be in my younger days, a much bigger guy who, like, couldn't get up the stairs without, like, losing my breath. And, I wanted to kind of make up for that lost time, and everything just all kind of clicked. I didn't set out to be someone who can get on a bike and bike from Los Angeles to San Diego, but it just kind of slowly got that way.
Man, if they did Tour de France, but just MMA fighters, who wins it?
Tour de France, but just MMA fighters. Man,
can I take a guess?
I would have to think who do we know that has, like, cardio for days?
I got a candidate.
I didn't think about that. I was thinking Hector Lombard with them big old thighs. He's got to get them calves, but he's right. The cardio, I don't know.
I will submit Nick Diaz.
Nick Diaz?
Because
that's not bad.
He is,
triathlon, right? Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I just, for some reason, like, Patrick Cummins always used to talk about how he had to, like, ride his bike everywhere because he had no money to do anything. So I don't know. Maybe he became a serious cyclist somewhere along the way. Who was it? Is it Rose or one of those fighters out in Colorado is pretty serious about cycling too? Maybe it was Pennington. I don't know. Either way, I wish I had a good answer, but maybe Nick Diaz is the answer.
That might have to be the daily debate one of these days.
Oh, good daily debate.
Who was actually right on that one? All right, Dave. Well, we took up too much of your time here. Thank you for reshuffling. We really appreciate it. But we did want to dive in and just talk a little bit more about all the stuff that you got going on there. It's great to have you on the team. We're really happy about that. You're an excellent writer. Check out Dave Doyle on MMAJunkie.com. He's always putting out all the great stories and helping us out here on the back end. Great guy. Thanks, Dave, for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right, and with that, we will take another commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to have our fictitious UFC celebrity versus celebrity card. Myself, Richard Hunter, and Andre the Giant's even going to chime in with his own card. So we'll get to that when we come back here on MMA Junkie Radio, Sirius XM Fight Nation Channel 156.
I'd like to
NFL training camps are open, and Fantasy Sports Radio is covering the fantasy football perspective. Listen to the best analysts for news about position battles, injuries, and which offense you should be investing in. Here, what about defense? You got to invest in your defense too. Here, player projections and rankings, plus live fantasy football expert drafts around the clock on the only channel dedicated to fantasy football, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio on Sirius 210 XM 87. And wherever you are with the Sirius XM app. How you like that? You guys like to play fantasy sports?
I play Fantasy Death Pool.
Oh, man. Can we ever dive into that one day?
Anytime you want. I'm getting you in the league next year.
Oh, for sure, dude. Andre, you have no idea what this is all about, but
I think you guys talked about it once. I'm like, wow.
Anyways, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a little silly right now. I don't think it's silly because...
It's serious. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I was really taking it serious. I was going up and down who I should put in my celebrity fictitious UFC card. From the bottom, from your ESPN Plus to your ESPN 2 to your pay-per-view card. And this all stems from Dana White actually entertaining the fact that the possibility that Justin Bieber and Tom Cruise could fight in the UFC, which drove us all mad. That's how we got here. So what we're going to do is we're going to involve Richard Hunter. We're going to involve myself. And we are going to involve Andre the Giant, our producer here at SiriusXM. We all have our little fight card, and let's get to it. How are we going to do this, Richard?
Good fight, good night.
How do you want to do it?
Okay. Well, if we agree that our collective main event is going to be Tom Cruise and Justin Bieber, then we need to go around the horn as if we were in the war room at the UFC corporate offices planning out this pay-per-view card and pitch ideas for the co-main event.
Okay.
So just whoever you would like to go first.
All right. So we're going to work our way down.
Yeah. It's co-main to feature and so forth.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Prepare to have whatever ideas you guys had eclipsed.
Okay.
Because I'm going to go with something that is timely, topical, something that a head-to-head hypothetical matchup that is already dividing this nation right square in half, and now we're going to put him in the octagon, mano a mano. I'm talking about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden.
Nice.
Battle of the septuagenarians.
I thought about that matchup, and I was going to go with Mueller instead, but I like your angle. That's a solid co-main event. I like it. How about you, Andre the Giant?
Let's see. I actually wrote that down, but I was like, I wouldn't want to see it unless there's like a big sponsorship from some nursing home or something. But anyway, my pick here is Will Ferrell against Ben Stiller.
Will Ferrell against Ben Stiller.
Yes, these two guys have pretty much threw in hit movies side by side from like the 90s, 2000s, and even into today. And they've always been like right around the same era. So I just want to see these two get it on.
We might have to put out a poll to figure out who's actually the winner of all this. Which card would you go to? Where would your money go? I'm going to go with my co-main event. I am going to go back to the All Valley Karate Tournament. I'm going to take those two actors, William Zabka, who played Johnny Lawrence in The Karate Kid, and I'm going to have him really fight Ralph Macchio, who played Daniel LaRusso.
I like it.
That's going to be my co-main event.
Art becomes reality.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. It's too bad that we couldn't have just been a couple of years earlier, and we probably could have enlisted the services of an elderly Pat Morita to corner Ralph Macchio. Sadly, no longer with us. Although I'll bet that sweep the leg Johnny guy. I'll bet he's still. Put him in
a body bag. Those guys for sure are paying money, right?
He's still showing up for soap opera auditions. He'd be happy to get this call.
All right, so how does this work? Do I go again and work my way back to you guys, or do we just start over?
You want to start over? Or?
Yeah,
all right, that's fine.
We just start back with you, Richard, yeah.
Okay, so now I need a feature attraction. Keep in mind, I'm wearing my promoter hat here. What I'm looking to do is with each match, I'm looking to go for kind of a different demographic, but at the same time, I want history, I want some symmetry, and I want a storyline. So for my feature attraction, I give you John Hinckley versus Mark David Chapman.
You might have to educate the listeners on this one.
All right.
Yeah.
I take you back to the very early 80s, 1981, in the case of John Hinckley, when he shot and nearly fatally wounded a then-President Ronald Reagan. He will be, that was all in the hopes of wooing the heart of actress Jodie Foster. Didn't work out. he will be taking on Mark David Chapman, who himself in December of 1980 was more accurate with his marksmanship and gunned down famed Fab Four member John Lennon. Mm-hmm. So you got a couple of guys who are both 64 years old. They're both 64 years old, both born in 55. Both guys served similar time in prison. Mark David Chapman's still in there. Hinckley recently paroled, but you're talking about a couple of guys who were products of the system for almost exactly the same amount of time. So in terms of training, access to, the weights in the prison yard and stuff like that, nutrition, it's all going to be about even right there.
Pretty good one. I like that.
And, you want to talk about matching up a couple of killers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of their cases, quite literally.
All right, Andre the Giant, you're next. Who you got? Your featured bout.
So I was thinking, since I got like two comedians pretty much at my co-main right here, I got to make sure I have like a serious action-filled bloodbath beforehand. I just all action all the way. And I'd look back also, just the same reasoning as I looked back with Will Ferrell and Ben Stiller. Came up with Jason Statham versus Vin Diesel. These two side by side. Yeah. That will be a really, really good fight. And you could think of all the films that these guys have been in. Like, for me being a 90s kid, those are like two of the biggest staple action stars that there has ever been. And that is why I put these two together.
I like it. Interesting. All right. I am going to go to the politics side, much like Richard Hunter did early. I am going to go in my featured bout. I like there being a theme. And here's my theme. Donald Trump versus El Chapo. If Trump wins, wall goes up. He loses, Chapo doesn't get released from jail, but at least we put him on an island and maybe make a reality series out of it.
Oh, something on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's my featured bout.
Real Housewives of Guantanamo Bay? Really?
That's interesting. Now, I'll tell you what, I don't know that we're going to have a greater height differential anywhere else on this card. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be...
Frankie Edgar did it for years.
Well, you want to talk about enjoying a reach advantage. Yeah.
But think about just if he can land one on Trump, the hair just flying back.
Mm-hmm.
How great would that be?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We are getting close here. Why don't we do one more round, and then we'll take a quick commercial break. But we might have to start doing rapid fire. Who you got next, Richard?
Okay. Next up, what I'd like to do is, we got to consider the ladies. It's been an all-male affair so far. I'd like to class this card up a little bit as well, so I'm going to match up two ladies that have 30 Oscar nominations between them. I'm talking about the incomparable Meryl Streep taking on Dame Judi Dench.
Wow.
That
older crowd's going to be really happy for this stretch of the card, right?
Well, and that's why I put it on earlier, because they don't stay up as late. Well, this is going to be their main event,
okay.
All right? But now this is not exactly even in terms of the age bracket, because while Streep is in her early 70s, Judi Dench is a little bit north of 80. Mm-hmm. But both in remarkable shape for their age, and I think they'll probably weigh in at a similar number. And, I think the eloquence of the trash talk that is Shakespearean in its nature, if you will, at the press conference is going to, if anything, I think launch a new era in at least the marketing of mixed martial arts as we know it.
I would be excited for the call of the fight. Just hearing Judi Dench is now in the Fix-It prep point. I think that would be kind of fun, too. Andre the Giant, who you got next?
All right. I was going to go with the ladies to the next fight, but for this one, I thought of something really personal, especially if you're a Marvel fan. There's a little bit of rivalries going on in between the fellow Avengers. So I do Chris Pratt versus Chris Hemsworth.
You know what? I had thought about doing something very similar. That's a very good matchup. I like it. Man, am I glad he didn't steal my thunder, though. So we got Thor against, what's their movie? Star-Lord, yeah.
And boy, we're going to have this card paid for just with the Marvel sponsorship alone at that point, probably.
Yeah, thank you.
And instead of ESPN Plus, this will be on Disney Plus. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I'll finish up this round. I am going to go with Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, against Dog the bounty hunter.
Mm.
Two dogs right in the middle center of the cage.
All All right. Interesting timing for that one. Dwayne Dog Chapman, of course, still mourning the loss of his beloved Beth.
So he needs to get his mind somewhere else.
Yeah, this may not be the best time for him to agree to a fight. Milan may have him there. All right. I like that.
Why don't we do this? We'll take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we will finish up our cards, our fictitious card. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Fight Nation Channel 156. We'll be right back.
Oh, you didn't know?
You can catch up on all things SiriusXM Fight Nation on demand on the SiriusXM app.
All clear. Got 3 minutes.
Who do I axe out of here? I think these guys might be too old. All right, we got to do these quick, right? Because we're not going to have that much time.
Yeah. All right, last song request for tonight. Any takers?
Way, boys.
All right, we're going to continue on with our card. We're going to have to do a little rapid fire because we're almost out of time. Richard, who you got in your swing bout?
Yep. What I want to do is appeal to the old rockers like myself. And actually, in this fight, familiarity breeds contempt. Gene Simmons taking on Paul Stanley.
Ooh.
The two co-generals of the legendary rock band Kiss, who have been together in a partnership for now on about 50 years, and also at odds with each other at times. I think Simmons is going to have the size advantage, but Paul is in incredible shape for a man that is hovering right around the age of 70. And for some sizzle, for some visual effect, I'm going to put this fight on with both of them wearing their onstage gear.
Wow.
The 7-inch heel, platform heels and all.
All right, let me ask you something. Are you busy tomorrow?
No.
If Andre's going to be here tomorrow, and you're available tomorrow, why don't we go through our main card? Come back tomorrow. We'll get George's main card.
Okay.
That way we don't rush through the whole thing.
I'm with you.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
You guys okay with that?
All right.
Yeah, I'm cool with
that. All right.
So we'll do the one more fight, and then we'll do the prelims tomorrow. Got it. Okay.
All right. So, Andre, who you got in your swing bout?
All right. I'm throwing in the ladies here. We're going to get all our pop fanatics and just come in, rock it like it's 2004, and we'll have Britney Spears against Miley Cyrus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Miley has the option of being Hannah Montana or her, so it's a 2-on-1 handicap match, theoretically.
Nice. All right, I like that. Miley Cyrus is also on my card, but she comes out a little earlier. My swing bout is going to be Kanye West, the Battle of the K's, versus Keanu Reeves.
Okay, that's
Keanu's
not a
gonna win.
matchup
I'm
I
sorry.
would have made right off the top of my head. That's interesting. It's a little outside the box there.
A little bit, right?
Any connection other than the fact that both their first names start with K's?
None whatsoever.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and how are you starting off your pay-per-view?
I'll tell you exactly how I'm starting it off goes. And you mentioned earlier, hey, it's important, this first fight of the night. You know, you want to jerk the curtain with some action. And speaking of jerking the curtain, I'm doing exactly what Andre did, going with a little feisty cat fight. I am matching up, and I'll ask everyone to put on their We Are All Fighters rainbow T-shirts as I announce Andy Cohen taking on Anderson Cooper. Couple of guys who are known to be pals, but you just get the vibe that, you know, under the right sort of circumstances, they could pretty quickly turn on each other. Also, a couple of guys who are, you know, late 40s into their early 50s, but I think both of them in incredible shape for their age, and I think both these guys are going to have cardio for days.
Are the ushers going to be able to concentrate knowing that their heroes are fighting right behind them all night?
Well, you know, that's a great question.
Andre, who you got in your opening bout?
All right, we're going to open it pretty damn wild, and I'm going to go Jack Black on Tropic Thunder. So with, like, him pretty much shooting up drugs and everything, getting all, like, fired up, like, toward that third act of that movie, against Zach Galifianakis, who would be on whatever he was taking during The Hangover.
Okay. All right.
That one's good, and that's also going to be good for trash talk during fight build-up. Those two improving would be great.
I feel like that would happen at IHOP, though. That's where, like, they would film.
Well, that's where we're having the press conference, is IHOP.
Yeah, or Golden Corral.
Yeah, one of those two. For sure they'd both be there. I'm going to open up my pay-per-view with the ladies. I'm going to take somebody who does not have a very good record in street fights. Snooki from the Jersey Shore. She's going head up with Courtney Love.
Oh, man.
They're going to be all over that cage.
Oh, this is going to be an ugly fight. I mean, ugly.
It's going to be wild.
So, like, Snooki as in regular everyday Snooki, or like Snooki
season 3 Jersey Shore
Snooki?
I predict that fight would be called due to disqualification when Courtney Love is temporarily blinded because some of Snooki's tan cream rubs off into her eyes.
Yeah. You know Mergliotta's going to be like, damn, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
All right, guys. It's a fun show today. I think we were a little serious in the beginning, had a little fun at the end, and we did our jobs in the middle, somewhere in the middle there. But I want to thank everybody for listening today. I want to thank Yves Edwards for coming on and promoting PFL 5. And I want to thank Dave Doyle, senior editor here at MMA Junkie. We appreciate all his hard work. I want to thank Richard for showing up and taking over for George, who's at Dana White Contender Series. He'll be back tomorrow. Andre the Giant holding it down on his side with his partner Josh. I'm Goes. Until tomorrow, be champions.